do what you say you're going to do. Be a man of your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you can't do it, say you can't do it, but be a man of your word.
Here's part 2 of our interview with Richard Badger. If you missed part 1, you can click the link up in the top right corner or in the description below. In this interview, we talk about his transition, advice for other veterans who are in transition, and how he landed in a career unrelated to his military experience. Let's jump right into it. So if we were friends in high school, who was Richard Badger and why did you join the military?
Oh man, so high school Richard Badger was football player, basketball player, very socially, I was socially dynamic, I would say. I was probably the most popular kid in school my senior year of high school, at least one of the most popular kids in high school. But I always treated people with the utmost respect, right? It was never a matter of being a mean girl. I'm not a girl, but never being a bully. It was always about trying to just help people, So when I got to my senior year of high school, my father is an Air Force veteran. He did 20 plus years in the Air Force. He's a Vietnam vet. And so I knew his story. I knew everything. And I was being recruited to play football and basketball. But unfortunately, I ain't gonna say unfortunately, I had a child on the way. I got a young lady pregnant my senior year of high school. And so at that time, I graduated in 1991. And so at that time, schools were not interested in your personal issues. They wanted you to come and perform for their school. And so needless to say, by having a child on the way and having some responsibilities that I need to take care of, school wasn't the immediate option anymore. Now I need to look at some other options. So I talked to my father, and my father's like, join the Army. It was kind of odd because he was in the Air Force, right? So he says join the Army, but his rationale was that I would make rank faster in the Army than I would in the Air Force. And that's what I did. I never second guessed it, never questioned him. I went and joined the Army. And so did my basic at Fort Knox, did my AIT at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. I was a 91 Bravo combat medic and served. I did a total of 8 years. I did the bulk of my tour was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and loved it. I loved it. I think what the military, for me, the best part of the military, I think, was the fellowship and camaraderie that you get when I was always in all male units. So I was always in ready units. So I never had the experience of serving with women soldiers, but the camaraderie and the fellowship that you get, like my battle buddy from basic training, Craig Berard, kid from Covenant, Rhode Island. We still connect today. We still are in communications with one another. And then, Tony Gutierrez, met him in San Antonio. He's from here, from Milwaukee. So, we still in communications. Like just the people that you meet in the military, you really do create these lifelong bonds. It's an extension of your family, and so that was kind of one of the beauties of it. Now, what I would tell people today, what I would tell young folks today is that if you have absolutely no clue what you want to do with your life, the military is a great way to learn yourself, because so often we find that our family can be our biggest hang up. And it's not that the family is doing it intentionally. Our families tend to love us so much that they strangle us from our own success, right?
Great.
I don't want you to go there. I don't want you to go. I want you safe with me, this and that. And no. So the military offers you that opportunity to have, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years of really getting to learn who you are. What are the things that you like, dislike, without having the shadow of family members kind of pushing you in the direction that they want you to go in, And so what I would tell young people is the military is a great opportunity to learn you. Acquire a skill in that same time, grow your own personal network, and you always have an opportunity to end your career at the end of your contract if you so choose. So it's not like it's a lifelong commitment, but the same 4 years that you'll spend in college, going a college route, you can spend that same 4 years in the military. So I think people have to understand. I think civilians need to understand that the military is not. It's not 100% combat driven. The military is not combat driven, in my opinion. It's training driven. It's training you and preparing you, no different than college prepares you to go into a profession. The military trains and prepares you to protect the country in the event a situation arises. So it's not combat driven. Nobody's looking to go to combat. That's never the plan. The plan is that we give you all this training and you never see combat.
Yep.
Like, that's the ultimate military career. That's the ultimate law enforcement career, that you never have to use your weapon, right? And so I think civilians have to realize that what you see in the movies is Hollywood. And war is war, don't get me wrong, but more soldiers are free from ever going to see in combat in their military career than the opposite being true. So that's a huge thing. But then we talk about the transition, right? Because overall, 90+% of soldiers that go into the military are going to come home. God rest the dead of those who don't make it, who don't return home. But most of us are going to return home. What do we do when we come home? And that's always kind of a question. So my job is, I work with the state of Wisconsin. I run the Wisconsin's apprenticeship program. And so the apprenticeship program is a tremendous opportunity for soldiers who are coming out of this very disciplined environment to come in to an apprenticeship opportunity, whether it's construction, industrial, healthcare, whatever space that they want to come into. They can come into an opportunity where they have full-time employment. They'll get the education that they need to tie with that employment, and they're getting paid for 100% of that opportunity. We were talking off camera. Right now, our average apprentices are earning between $65,000 and $85,000 a year with no educational debt hanging over their head. Also, the beauty of the apprenticeship program is that soldiers can use their GI Bill to cover the school expense that happens throughout the apprenticeship. So when we say that there's no educational debt hanging over their head when they're done, because all that schooling is paid for throughout the apprenticeship. So you're not necessarily taking out student loans to pay for your schooling. We use the Wisconsin Technical College system, which is very affordable to provide that related instruction. And $85,000 a year is a very sustainable wage to take care of a family. And typically soldiers that get out after they can finish their first contract, they're roughly around 26 years old, 26, 28 years old, somewhere around there, unless they went in right after high school. The average apprentice age coming in is roughly around that 26, 28 years old. So they fit right in, to what the successful figures are when it comes to the Wisconsin apprenticeship program.
So the federal GI Bill, that's the one that pays for the cost of living? Because I know Wisconsin has its own GI Bill too.
Correct. So the post 9/11 GI Bill is, so for some of the older veterans that might be watching this podcast, might be watching this airing. So when I was in, it was the Montgomery GI Bill. And so you had 10 years to use the Montgomery GI Bill. And so after that 10 years went out, Governor Tommy Thompson, I forgot what year, he introduced the Wisconsin GI Bill. So the Wisconsin GI Bill essentially mimicked the Montgomery GI Bill with the exception that it didn't have an expiration date to it. After 9/11, the federal government, Congress, introduced what's called the post 9/11 GI Bill. So there's no expiration, it's my understanding there's no expiration date to the 9/11 GI Bill. So soldiers that went in after 9/11, they'll have that educational option for the rest of their life. But with the Montgomery GI Bill and with the Wisconsin GI Bill, there's 160, I think it covers 120 credits of your education, which will get you a bachelor's degree, an undergrad degree. With the apprenticeship, you're not gonna conclude with a degree by way of the apprenticeship. Because with the apprenticeship, it's designed for you to take all core classes, so you're not taking any gen eds. So since you're not writing papers on why the sky is blue, although you're learning how to be a carpenter, because it has no bearing on the job itself. But if you want to pursue your degree after that, then you still have resources within the Wisconsin GI Bill to go ahead and take that, or the 9/11 GI Bill to cover that cost.
Gotcha. So how does a veteran get involved in something like this? So if I'm a veteran transitioning out and I want to get in the trades, are you the guy that I call and contact, or how do I get?
So there's a couple of things, a couple ways. One, they can get in contact with me just by way of wanting to learn about apprenticeship, and I can kind of help guide and direct them. I would say probably the best way would be go through Veteran Services. Department of Veteran Affairs would probably be the best option, because they'll have a whole laundry list of different veteran services that are available, in addition to resources, and there may actually be some other workforce development resources that they could tie into and tap into prior to them even tapping into their GI Bill. So that would probably be the best one, because they'll just have more knowledge. They're more the subject matter experts on veteran affairs. But when it comes to apprenticeship, I'll be a subject matter expert on that. So they could definitely give me a call.
So you handle all trades,
Yep.
if I want to get into HVAC, plumbing, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. So Wisconsin apprenticeship, we are the first state to do it. Wisconsin's been doing apprenticeship since 1911. And so the federal government has modeled their apprenticeship program based off of Wisconsin. All the other states based theirs off of Wisconsin. There are 25 state-ran programs around the country. There's 25 federally ran programs around the country. Wisconsin happens to be a state-ran program. So what I do, there's a team of 15 of us that do what I do across the state of Wisconsin.
Oh, that's interesting. So did you have any challenges when you got out of the military? Like, I know personally, I didn't have all the access to all the resources there are today.
Correct.
I think some of us veterans during our era helped pave the way, because we experienced some of those things and we wanted to help solve some of those problems. But what was your transition like when you got out?
I would say that, so for me, the biggest one was, how do I take my military training and convert it to civilian application? And so being that I entered into the military from Wisconsin, I returned back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin at the time didn't accept military. I was a medic. So the certification that I had while I was in the military didn't transfer over to the state of Wisconsin. Now, there are some states that will recognize military certifications into the civilian transition, but Wisconsin wasn't one of those states. And so for me, originally my end game was, I wanted to be a physician. I wanted to go into pathology. I wanted to be a forensic, like a coroner, right? And so, but when they told me I needed to go back to school and do all this repeat study, that didn't make sense to me. And so I decided not to do that, because I felt like it was a waste of time, and it was definitely going to be a waste of money. So that was definitely a challenge. So what I would encourage transitioning soldiers to do is, really look at, if your training, your military training, if it transitions and carries over to the civilian side, particularly in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's done a much better job over the course of the last 10, 15 years of being more veteran friendly. But when I came out, it was, they wanted me to go back to school and duplicate stuff that I already knew. Like, what does it look like for me to be in a classroom with students, shooting an IV, when I've done it in the dark with a pen light and sand blowing around with a Black Hawk coming in? Like, what does that look like? So I was just like, there's no way I'm going to waste my time and money on that. And so I ended up going an entirely different route professionally. And it worked out for me, but that's not to say it's going to necessarily work out for everybody else.
Yeah.
What I would encourage returning soldiers to do, especially depending on what their situations are, what their circumstances are, where they were in, is connect with some of the veteran organizations, that are around your area. In Milwaukee, we have Dry Hooch that's in Milwaukee, and there's some other organizations that are out there as well. But try to connect with those organizations, and then also, even before you ETS or retire, try to get some trips in back and forth, so you can start building that situation before you even get out permanently. Because once you're home, you're home. And I think the military does a good job at the out processing, trying to de-soldier us, but we're programmed. Yep. We're going to be soldiers for the rest of our lives, whether we admit to it or not. The training that we receive sticks with us for the rest of our lives. And so when guys and ladies come home, they should be trying to connect with individuals that can share in those experiences, so that way they don't feel like they're on an island. Because there are probably going to be many a days when you come home and you feel completely disconnected. Because think about it, when you've been gone for a while, so you want to come home and reconnect with your childhood friends, but they're different because you're different, right? It's not the same vibe, it's not the same energy. But if you connect with some of the veteran organizations, you'll find people that's your age that have similar experiences, and you can still have relationships with your childhood friends, but this is a way for you to stay balanced.
Sure.
Because I think oftentimes we will find ourselves off balance, and I think that's what concerns our loved ones, especially those who have combat experience.
Yep. So speaking of combat experience, so how did you, being a combat medic, find your place in doing what you're doing now? Like, that's completely opposite of what you were doing.
Very
now
true.
You're in the trades.
I think the one thing to notice that when you go into the military, the first thing they do is make you a soldier first, right? So we're all soldiers, regardless of the occupation. They teach you your occupation last. They teach you how to be Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine. They teach you that first, right? So they strip you of all the civilianness of you, and then they make you into soldier, airman, crewman, Marine, right? So I think for me, the biggest transition was, because I did a lot of government and stuff prior to where I'm at right now. I think the biggest transition was because when I came home, they wanted me to duplicate the schooling and everything. That really kind of pushed me to the legislative side. How can I get legislators to improve the system as it pertains to veterans and what we learn in the military? And so for me, it became almost a simple transition because I was still kind of doing the same thing. Now, instead of fighting for the country or fighting for people, I was fighting for an issue. I was fighting for a cause. And the cause was veterans getting the credit due to them from their military experience transitioning over to the civilian side, at least in the state of Wisconsin. I actually ran for office in 2008, and that was one of my platform items, that I want to make sure that veteran issues were going to be paramount, and that we have true conversations about what it is to be a veteran in the state of Wisconsin, what it looked like and what it should look like. Because I feel like in Wisconsin, I think veterans all across the country, there should be a certain degree of consideration when it comes to veterans. One, I question property taxes, right? If you own a house as a veteran, I don't think we should have to pay property taxes. A lot of states already do that, but Wisconsin is not one of them. Education. I think if you got certifications while you're in the military, regardless of what the certifications were in, those certifications should carry over to the state that you're in this case, Wisconsin. So, it really, for me being a combat medic just allowed, and me going into what I'm doing now, it's just a different defense that I'm in right now. I want to see people succeed. I want to see people do well. We know that individuals that work, they are less likely to commit crime, so if we can get them into a good career, because apprenticeships are not jobs, these are careers.
Yep.
So get you into a good career, we almost assured that you're not going to go out here and go rob a house or break into somebody's house or rob a store and car. You're likely not going to do that, because one, you're tired from this full day of work, and hopefully and prayerfully you now have things to lose. You have a house, you have a car, you have a family that you have to maintain. So I think it keeps people focused on what's important.
Yeah, and I know the military has made us both better in probably many aspects of our life. What's 2 to 3 takeaways that you took away from the military that you believe have made you better and led to some of the success you've had?
I would say being able to focus even in erratic situations. That's probably a big tool that I think all of us get. 2, and this came from my father, but it was reinforced when I got into the Army. Do what you say you're going to do. Be a man of your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you can't do it, say you can't do it. But be a man of your word. And I would say the third thing is everything that we do, or everything that I do, is not about the result for me. It's about the result for those that are before me. So we never fought a war for ourselves. We always fought a war so that people behind us would be able to live free and comfortably. So we don't really do anything for ourselves. We're the sacrifice, you know, for everybody else. And then I'll give a fourth. And I learned this one. I learned this one from a mentor of mine. He said, people should always leave your presence better than when they first entered it. So I live my life always trying to, even if it's just saying hello to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, you never know what somebody's day has been, and they've been walking this earth with no recognition. So just recognizing somebody by saying good morning and giving them a nice smile could alter the course of their day.
Sure.
You know.
Love that. This has been great, man. You dropped a lot of great gems in this conversation here. But before we leave, what's the impact that Richard Badger wants to leave on this earth and community before he leaves?
I told my wife, when I die, I want on my tombstone or my obituary, a brother tried. And I think that's, when I leave this place, I want people to know that I love people, I love community, I love country, I love family, and I've done everything I could do that I knew how to do to try to improve on all of those things. We hope you enjoyed part 2 of our interview with Richard Badger. If you missed part 1, you can check out that video right here. Or you may like this one right here. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.